I'm standing in the middle of a home that should not exist. The kettle is warming on a little propane ring. The floor is dry and warm under my socks. Outside, it's 9 degrees and the wind is screaming. In here, it's 70. This whole place was built from a box that people were paying money to throw away. A rusted cargo box off the back of a dead delivery truck. Something a scrapyard was about to crush flat. This is a true story. It's my story. Every dollar, every mistake, every freezing night in it is real. Here's what I need you to stay for. There's one thing I pulled out of a dumpster behind a roofing job that changed everything I thought I knew about staying warm. It cost me nothing. Not 1 cent. It's the only reason this box didn't kill me my first winter. And I'll show you exactly what it was and exactly how you can find it too. But first I have to take you back. Back to the night I had no apartment, no plan, and a car with a quarter tank of gas. I still remember counting change on the dashboard under a dead dome light and realizing the 4 quarters in my palm were the last money I had in the world. That was the bottom. What I'm about to tell you is how I climbed out of it with almost nothing. No land of my own, and no help from anyone who was supposed to help. So let me start where it really started, because I know some of you are sitting exactly where I was sitting that night. I lost my apartment on a Tuesday. It wasn't dramatic. There was no eviction crew, no shouting, just a notice on the door and a lock that no longer turned to my key. My rent had gone up $240 in 1 year, and my hours at work had been cut the same month. That's it. That's the whole story of how a person ends up in a car. It isn't laziness, it's math that stops working. I slept in that car for 19 nights. I know it was 19 because I marked each one with a little scratch on the inside of the glove box door, like a prisoner, because I was terrified that if I stopped counting, I'd lose track of who I was. The cold came up through the seat. My feet never really got warm. I learned to park behind a 24-hour grocery store because the lot had lights and nobody bothered a woman sleeping in a Honda if there were other cars around. And here's the thing, nobody tells you about being down there. The worst part isn't the cold. It's the way people look at you when they figure it out. A woman I used to work with saw me brushing my teeth at a gas station sink. She gave me this little smile, the kind you give a stray dog, and she said, "Oh, honey, is everything okay?" And I said, "Yes, of course, everything's fine." But I saw it in her face. She'd already decided what I was. She'd already filed me under a word I won't say out loud, and I could tell she felt a little better about her own life for having seen me. That look is what built this house. I want you to understand that. That look is the engine of everything I'm about to show you. Because I decided, sitting in that car, that I was not going to be somebody's sad story. I was going to have 4 walls and a door that locked from the inside, and I was going to do it with money I did not have. So the question became simple and impossible at the same time. Where does a person with no money get a building? Everyone I talked to had the same answer, and the answer was basically no. A tiny house kit was $30,000 I'd never see. A used camper in any decent shape was 6 or 7,000. Rent was the thing that broke me in the first place, so that door was closed. The system had 100 ways to say the same thing to me. You don't have enough. You don't have enough. You don't have enough. But I noticed something while I was driving around those weeks, half looking for work and half just trying to burn time so I wouldn't cry. I noticed how much good stuff this country throws away. I mean, genuinely good, solid, useful things sitting at the curb and behind buildings, waiting for a truck to haul them to a hole in the ground. And the biggest thing I ever saw thrown away was sitting in a commercial lot on the edge of town behind a chain link fence with a faded sign that said the whole yard was being cleared. It was a box, just the cargo box off a medium delivery truck, 16 feet long, set down on the gravel with no wheels and no cab. The truck it belonged to had died and been sold for parts, and this aluminum and steel box was what was left. It had a roll-up door on the back and a walk door on the side. It was dented. It had surface rust. 2 of the wall panels were dinged in like somebody had backed a forklift into them. I stood at that fence and I felt my whole chest go tight because I already knew. I knew this was it. 16 feet by 7.5 feet. 120 square feet of dry, sealed space that already had a floor, a roof, and 2 doors. I found the number on the sign. I called it standing right there so I wouldn't lose my nerve. The man who answered was clearing the lot for a developer, and he told me the box was going to the metal recycler unless somebody hauled it off first. I asked what he wanted for it. There was this long pause, and he said, Lady, if you can get it out of here by Friday, you can have it for $200. $200 for a building. Now, I want to be honest with you because honesty is the only thing I have that's worth anything. I did not have $200. I had $31 and some change, so I did the thing that scared me most. I called the only person left who still picked up when I called, my aunt, and I told her the whole truth. Not the everything's fine version, the real one, the car, the 19 scratches on the glove box. And I told her I'd found a way out, but I needed $200 and a truck for one day. She was quiet for a second. Then she said, "You always did see things other people walked right past." And she wired me the money that afternoon. Getting it moved was its own nightmare. A guy with a flatbed and a winch charged me $150 to drag it up onto his trailer and set it down on a piece of land I'd arranged to borrow. That's the part people skip when they tell these stories, so I won't. I didn't own land. I still don't. Not really. I found a man with 5 acres of scrub outside of town who let me put the box in his back field in exchange for $40 a month and help feeding his chickens. $40 a month. That was my rent now. That was the whole game changing right in front of me. So there it sat. My box, my 120 square feet, and the first night I slept in it, still empty, still echoing, I lay on the metal floor in my sleeping bag and I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 months. I felt the door locked from the inside. Nobody could look at me through the glass. Nobody could give me that stray dog smile. It was mine. But then the temperature dropped and I learned the truth about a metal box. A metal box is a refrigerator. That's what it's built to be. That cargo box was designed to keep the outside out, which is wonderful in the rain and absolutely deadly in the cold. Metal pulls the heat right out of your body and throws it to the sky. That first cold night, I woke up at 3 in the morning, shaking so hard my teeth hurt, and the inside of the walls was wet with frost from my own breath. My breath had frozen on the walls above my head. I had traded a cold car for a cold box, and winter hadn't even really started yet. I'll tell you the number that scared me straight. I bought a little cheap thermometer, the kind that shows inside and outside, and one morning in early December, it read 14 degrees outside and 19 degrees inside. 5 degrees of difference. That's all my building was giving me. 5 degrees. A person cannot survive a real winter with 5 degrees of protection. People die in those numbers. Every year, hundreds of people in this country die from the cold, and a lot of them die indoors, in places exactly like what I had built. This is the part where I could have quit. I want you to know how close I came. I sat on that cold floor with my head in my hands and I thought, maybe they were right. Maybe the woman at the gas station was right about me. Maybe I don't have enough and I'm never going to have enough. But I got angry instead. Because I started reading everything I could at the public library on their free computers, an hour at a time, and I learned something that made me furious. I learned that the difference between a metal box that kills you and a home that keeps you at 70 degrees isn't money. It's one word. Insulation. And the thing about insulation is that the exact material that would save my life was being thrown into dumpsters all over my city every single day for free. Now, if you're still with me, I need to talk to you directly for a minute, especially you. The one who's been listening to all this thinking, that's a nice story for her, but it could never be me. I don't have an aunt with $200. I don't have a handy bone in my body. I don't have anywhere to put a box. This next part is for you, because everything I'm about to tell you costs almost nothing, needs no skills you don't already have, and you can start this week, today, with a car or a borrowed truck and a pair of gloves. Here's the first thing I want you to understand. The most valuable building material in America is sitting in dumpsters behind construction sites and roofing jobs right now, and it is legal in most places to take it, and the crews are usually thrilled to see it gone. I'm talking about rigid foam insulation board. The stiff panels, usually pink, blue, or with a silver foil face. When a commercial building gets a new roof, the crew tears off the old insulation in big sheets and throws it away by the truckload. That foam is often barely used, and it is the single best cheap defense against cold that a human being can get their hands on. Let me give you the number that made me gasp out loud in that library. The silver-faced foam, the kind called polyiso, gives you about 6 points of insulation value for every inch of thickness. 6. To put that in plain talk, 2 inches of that free foam board will insulate better than a whole wall of the fluffy pink stuff you buy in rolls at the store. And roofers throw it out. They pay to dump it. So here is what you do, and this is the part I wish somebody had handed me on night 1 in that car. You go online to the free section of the classifieds, and you search the words free insulation and free foam board. You call the number on a roofing company's truck, and you ask, politely, if you can take their tear-off foam before it goes in the bin. You drive behind strip malls that are getting new roofs. You just start looking at the world as a place that is throwing away the exact thing you need, instead of a place that is charging you for everything. I filled my whole car 3 times over with foam board I got for nothing, big 4-foot by 8-foot sheets. Some of it had a little tar on one side. I did not care. Tar doesn't feel the cold, and you don't need to build a box like mine to use this. If you're in a car right now, tonight, you can cut that foam to fit your windows, and it will stop the cold from pouring through the glass. If you're in a camper that freezes, you line the walls with it. If you're in a room you can't afford to heat, you put it behind your bed against the coldest wall. This one free material, pulled from the trash, is the closest thing to a miracle I have ever touched with my own 2 hands. So don't tell me it could never be you. It was me, and I had $31. And if you're sitting somewhere cold right now, wondering whether any of this is actually learnable, I want to point you towards something I put together for exactly that moment. I wrote it all down, every step, every mistake, every material, and where to find it, in a book called Built from Nothing. It's the guide I needed the night I sat on that frozen floor, and it covers everything from finding your first shelter to building something deeper and more permanent, which is why the full series is called First Shelter and Build Deeper. If you want the complete roadmap in one place, it's $97, and the link is in the description at shelterfromnothing.com. It is, without question, the cheapest roof I have ever helped anyone put over their head. Now let me show you how I actually put my home together, because collecting the foam was only half of it. I built my walls in layers, from the metal inward, like getting dressed for a blizzard. Against the cold metal, I glued a thin sheet of foam with the foil facing out toward the metal to bounce the heat back inside. Then I built a simple frame of 2x2 wood boards I got from busted shipping pallets, which I broke down with a crowbar in the back of the field. Between those boards, I stacked my free foam board, 2 layers thick, 4 inches total, which gave me around 24 points of insulation value in a wall that had started at almost nothing. But I made a terrible mistake first, and I have to tell you about it, because it almost cost me the whole build. On my first wall, I sealed everything up tight with no way for moisture to escape, and within a week I had water running down behind the foam and rust blooming on my metal like a disease. That frozen breath on the wall had to go somewhere, and I'd trapped it. I nearly rotted my own home from the inside before I ever finished it, so I tore that first wall back out. And I learned the rule that every one of you needs to hear if you try this. You seal the warm side, the inside, so moisture can't get into the wall in the first place. I taped every seam of my foam with foil tape, $2 a roll, so the inside face of my wall was one continuous skin. That stopped my breath from ever reaching the cold metal. The rust stopped, the dripping stopped, and the temperature inside my box started to climb and stay. For the ceiling, I did the same thing, because heat rises and a cold ceiling will steal everything you've got. For the floor, the metal floor that had frozen my back that first night, I laid foam board down, then scrap plywood on top of it, and I screwed it down tight. The first time I stepped on that floor with bare feet and it wasn't ice cold, I actually laughed out loud, alone, in a field. Now I hear the doubt already, because I had it too. What about heat? What about the actual fire that keeps a person alive? Because insulation only holds heat, it doesn't make it. I looked at wood stoves. A real tiny wood stove runs $300-400, and I didn't have it. So here's what I did the first winter. I used a single small propane heater, the kind that screws right onto a green canister, made for indoors with the safety shutoff, and I ran it low. And because my walls were now 4 inches of foam sealed tight as a drum, that one little heater did something the man at the scrapyard would never have believed. On a night it was 14 degrees outside, my inside thermometer read 58 degrees. From 5 degrees of difference to 44 degrees of difference. Same box, same weather. The only thing that changed was free trash on the walls. I cracked a window a finger's width for fresh air, always, because you never run any flame in a sealed space without air. And I bought a little battery alarm for carbon monoxide for $20, which is the one thing in this whole build I will beg you never to skip. $20. It's the cheapest life insurance there is. But even with all that, there was one problem left that nearly beat me. And it's the problem that leads to the thing I promised you at the very beginning. The problem was the deep cold, the nights that dropped below zero, because on those nights, even sealed and heated, the metal frame of the box itself would carry cold straight through my walls like a cold nail driven through a warm blanket. The engineers have a name for it. They call it thermal bridging. And in a metal building, it's everywhere, at every rib and every corner, and it was pulling my hard-won heat right out into the dark. I couldn't afford more foam board thick enough to beat it. I sat with that thermometer watching it slide down toward the 30s inside on the coldest nights, and I felt that old panic come back. So close. I was so close, and the deep cold was going to take it from me anyway, and this is where I found the thing. The thing I told you to stay for. I was behind a home improvement store, looking for pallets like I always did, and I saw a dumpster full of what looked like giant silver bubble wrap. Rolls and rolls of it, torn and thrown out. It was reflective bubble insulation, the radiant kind, the sort they wrap around ductwork and ship as packing. 2 thin layers of foil with bubble wrap in between. Most people walk right past it. It looks like nothing. It looks like garbage. That's exactly why it was in the dumpster. But I'd read about how it works, and I understood what nobody around me understood. That foil doesn't stop cold the way foam does, by being thick. It works by reflecting heat. Radiant heat, the warmth your body and your heater throw off, bounces off that shiny surface and comes back to you instead of soaking away into the metal. And the beautiful part, the part that solved my exact problem, is that it works best across a thermal bridge. It stops the cold from riding the metal, because heat can't ride across a shiny reflective gap the way it rides through solid material. I took every roll in that dumpster. It filled my car to the roof. It cost me nothing. And I lined the entire inside of my home with it, over the foam, foil facing in toward the room, with a little air gap held by thin wood strips, because that reflective foil only does its magic when there's an airspace in front of it. I stapled it up over every rib, every corner, every cold metal seam, so the whole inside of my box became one continuous shining shell that threw my own heat back at me. The night I finished, it dropped to 4 below zero. 4 below. The coldest night of that whole winter. I lay in my bed and I did not run the heater any higher than usual, and I watched that little thermometer and I waited for the number to fall the way it always had. It didn't fall. It read 62 degrees inside, with 4 below outside. A 66-degree difference, held all night, from a metal box that gave me 5 degrees when I started. Held by foam that roofers threw away, and foil that a hardware store threw away, and pallets I broke apart with a crowbar in the dark. I sat up in that bed and I cried, and this time it wasn't the bad kind. Because I understood, finally, all the way down, that they had all been wrong about me. The woman at the gas station, the rental market that priced me out, the salesman who told me $30,000. Every single person who looked at me and decided I didn't have enough, they were wrong. The whole time, the things I needed were sitting in dumpsters, being paid for by other people to be thrown away, and all it ever took was the willingness to look where nobody else was looking. That was 3 winters ago. I'm still in this box. It has held through 3 of them now, and I've added things slowly with cash I don't have to hand to a landlord anymore. A real little bed frame, a shelf of books, a window box where I grow herbs in the summer. The place where I lay shaking on frozen metal is the same place my kettle is warming right now, at 70 degrees, while it's 9 degrees outside and the wind is trying to get in and it can't. So that's how the bottom became the home you saw at the very start. $200 for the box, $40 a month for the field, foam from a roofing dumpster, foil from a hardware store bin, pallets and foil tape, and one $20 alarm that I will never ever skip. That's the whole recipe. That's the thing millions of people are starting to see now, and I understand exactly why some of them are furious about it, because it means the wall they were told they couldn't climb was never really there. If you take one thing from me tonight, let it be this. You were never the problem, the math was rigged, and nobody showed you the trash was full of the answer. Now somebody has. You're the kind of person who refuses to be written off. I know that because you're still here at the end, while easier videos scrolled by, people like us don't get handed homes. We build them out of what the world throws away, and we make them warm, and we lock the door from the inside, and we sleep. So tell me something. If you had one free afternoon and a car this week, where would you go looking first? The roofing dumpster or the hardware store bin? And tell me where you're watching from, because I read every one of these and I want to know how many of us are out here. Leave it in the comments. Say it out loud. It matters more than you know. And if you believe a home can be built from nothing by people the world stopped counting, then stay with me. Because next time I'm going to show you how I got running water and a hot shower into that box for under $60, without a well, without a hookup, and without asking anyone's permission. Don't miss it. It's the piece everyone tells me is impossible, right up until I show them it's already done. I'll be honest with you. That thing I found in the dumpster, the insulation that saved my first winter, that's the deeper story. And I saved it for my members. Inside the Shelter Builders, I walk you through the whole method. You can ask me your own questions and I answer you myself. You belong here with us. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel anytime with one click. Now, if that touched something in you, wait till you see what comes next. I show you how a warm, safe shelter can go up in just 5 minutes. Spending nothing at all. It's starting right here.